At this stage, tension becomes more than a buzzword for both build teams. The buzz gets around pretty quick in this business, and you can be sure both teams are focused on the progress of their respective projects. But a time crunch will never mean cutting corners with any of these guys. Finishing means nothing if the project doesn't work to plan. The Classic Industries Impala plans were laid down before we arrived, but we all know what can happen with the best laid plans. That's when creativity really has to kick in. Our two teams aren't competing, but reputation assures they want to be in lockstep with the other guys.
The R&D team at MagnaFlow have had the 64 Impala for 3 days now. Should be interesting to see what they've come up with. Hey, Richard.
Hey, what's going on, Dan?
Not much. How are you? So you've had this for a while?
My name is Richard. I'm the engineering director for MagnaFlow Performance Exhaust. The first muffler will lie somewhere in about just under the floor pan. Right. We're going to bring the tubing across to follow the X in and keep it as tight to the floor as possible.
Yeah, you got points here that are like the same height pretty much as the X.
Yep.
Right?
We're obviously looking at a car that we're putting on big brakes, putting on big wheels and tires.
Yeah, this stuff isn't going to clear that.
Yep, our traditional pathway of going up and through the fender well just isn't going to work. Well, here's that part we talked about, the driver's side.
This is done?
Yep, Jose here is going to go ahead and give you a hand. We're going to get this thing installed in the car. We've got to do a little bit of fitment, adjust some parts, weld up the collector, but this will be your guide for the next part of the installation. Jose's role primarily in this was to do assembly and welding. Primarily his function was to take the parts that we'd assembled, place them on the vehicle, and then put them into their final resting position. Upon receiving the car, one of the first things we noticed was the air ride suspension. Typically speaking, when you have a lot of adjustment within the suspension, we have to deal with ground clearance issues, and also at the same time we have to look at the geometry of the suspension and how that's going to be relative to the exhaust system.
Okay, so this is everything we need for passenger side, right?
Yep.
I got to put it all together?
Basically what I got here is me and Jim were just going over, laying over all the parts we just put into the driver's side. We got them all laid out here. We got the raw pipe. We got some trim pieces that should be pretty close to what we're working with. Right. We got all the clamps, all the hangers, pretty much everything you saw up there is finished goods. We got in raw materials here.
Jose, it'll be 5 minutes. We'll be over in 5 minutes. Am I doing it?
Yes.
10 minutes. All right, this is it.
That's the beginning piece.
Where all things start.
I'm Jim Gose. I'm a fabricator for MagnaFlow. We did the fabrication for the head pipes, installing the mufflers to the headers and tailpipes.
In the front of the motor, we were working with a set of 4-into-1 collectors that end up at a 3-inch type collector. This is pretty traditional for most of your V8 type applications with high horsepower. We do transition from that 3-inch collector into a 2.5-inch exhaust to keep the velocity up so that the car can expel the exhaust gases efficiently. And at the same time, we don't want to create any extra reverberation by using too large a tube. We used a variety of mufflers in this vehicle. We actually used what we call an offset 4x9 straight through muffler. The muffler choice that we used would allow us the ability for the car to contain the horsepower, still have that muscle note, but not interfere with the overall comfort level of the car for daily driving.
The objective is to determine pipe length and position. The only welds we need are tack welds. These are practice pipes. The real deal is still to come.
Chad is our bender. He's in charge of our mandrel bending capacity that we have here.
The first thing I do is I take the parts and I take our measuring probe and scan the part and reverse engineer a program for my bender.
Chad's going to take all that information, punch it into our bender, and we'll go ahead and get us some new parts.
You set the program for what you want the machine to do, the different configuration, the length, rotation, and angle of the part that you're bending.
Automation has always been a MagnaFlow signature. If there's an automated exhaust machine out there, these guys get to play with it to see what it can really do.
Once the machine is done, I pull the tube off and we have a production piece.
Perfectly bent without flow restrictions. Nice.
One of the challenges that we brought forth with this car in an X-frame is the fact that the frame itself does divide the car in half. Your typical exhaust routing is not allowed in such a situation. We got some final welding to do. It looks like we got the muffler body to chassis, and we got the front collector to do up front. And other than that, we should be ready to pull this out, have Jose weld it up, put her back in.
Determining hanger locations and locking them in is a quick step. Only the front collectors require hand welding. And with the skill of the guys in this shop, you can pretty much rest assured there won't be any leaks in these welds.
Overall, I was very happy with what we saw as our finished product. I think we're going to have something that's going to sound great and it's going to perform to the level that the engine was designed for this car. We're going to have the high-flowing 2.5-inch mandrel bent pipe. We have our polished stainless mufflers with very little restriction. And at the same time, the combination of the two should give us good horsepower and a great sound.
Three-inch collectors to 2.5-inch pipe, straight through performance mufflers. That is a MagnaFlow.